Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Good morning. Happy
Sunday
Sunday.
morning. It is good to see you. It is good to be here with you. It is a good day. It's always a good day. And we are going to begin, as we always do, with prayer.
Yes,
And
yes.
today, our prayer champion, Vanessa, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. I invite you to breathe in with me, deeply and fully, and we exhale into the present. I am here now, knowing that there is one Creator, one mind's power and presence that is all life and living, all time and space, all form and function. Mother, Father, God, I know you to be everything and anything. I experience the beauty of nature, of humanity, of creativity, of stillness, and I know you. I know love. I know light. I know wholeness. And as I know you, I know me, an individualized expression of the one, perfect, whole, complete. I have my life and living in you, Mother, Father, God. My brother, my sister have their life and living in you. We know who and whose we are. We are knowing together that life never acts against itself, that love is unconditional, that the light that guides the way does so constantly. So any fear, doubt, or worry about anything in particular is unreal, for it does not come from the one mind. It is unnecessary, for it has no place in the one purpose. We now release any judgment, any resentment and guardedness, knowing that the perfection back of all beings remains untouched, that the ability for any being to align with this perfection and be renewed in action is always available, and we are perfectly created to avail ourselves of it. Now we allow the vibration of ease, of trust, and affirmative expectation to permeate us. As false beliefs come up to be healed, we know that all needs are met, all questions answered, all desires responded to, all calls for love completed here and now. We look forward with enthusiasm to how this truth will demonstrate in today's service. We know that in this time with Celebration Spiritual Center, we will receive exactly what we are needing through the words of our pastors and our own divine minds. And so we are receptive. We are clear. We see ourselves, other people, and situations in a new way. We are here and now being well, being prosperous, being healthy and flowing and joyful. We are co-creating this experience and demonstrating the love and light of life this morning. We are looking forward to how the blessings of this experience will carry throughout this day, this week, this life. It is this knowing and expectation that we release to the one mind's power and presence that makes it so, that harmonizes it divinely, perfectly for each of us, that demonstrates it in no uncertain terms, beautifully, powerfully. Thank you, God. Thank you for how beautiful and affirming the truth is. Thank you for this prosperous life and the abundant experiences within it. Thank you for this vision, this day, and this community. It is in this gratitude, with a renewed intention, with an extraordinary trust and an aligned faith, that we move forward on the word of Amen, Ashe, and so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
Ashe, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, Vanessa. So I want to just say this at the outset. There appears to be an issue that the streaming is not happening to YouTube. We posted a message on YouTube, but if you're connected to someone or anyone's texting you and saying they can't connect on YouTube, please have them come to Facebook, because we're here, we're streaming, we're live, all is well, all is working. We will share and post the recording to YouTube at the completion of this stream. But if you want to be with us live, if you want your comments in the building, if you want your yeses to be in the building, and if you want us to feel your energy in real time, please make sure that you're connecting with us here on Facebook. So we are in week 7. We are in chapter 6. We have a lot to discuss and a lot to move through. But of course, first and foremost, we want to check in on a couple things. And I'm sorry, my slides are out of order. When I was doing some testing. So We want to check in on a couple things, make sure everyone knows what's going on because we have so many wonderful things going on. The first thing we want to just say congratulations to all of the 2020 grads.
Yes.
There was that beautiful event last night on TV for the high school grads, but we know there are kindergarten graduates. There are those that are graduating from middle school to high school. There are those that are graduating college. There are those that are graduating with their postgraduate degrees and doctorates. And so we see you, we celebrate you, we love you. Congratulations. We know that this has been a different period of time as you finished up your studies, but you succeeded, you stayed the course, you persevered, you kept your eyes on the prize, and look at you now. It's a beautiful thing, and we celebrate you. Yes, yes, we celebrate you. So, of course, the other two things we want to make sure you know about are our prayer call. We are excited about prayer. Prayer is necessary. It is part of our daily spiritual practice. And we as a community come together in prayer every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll see all the information here on your screen. To call in, there's also the web link you can use. You can even download the app to connect in as well. Whichever way feels good for you. It's easy. It's effortless. Use the one that feels good to you. But more importantly, the playback number is there. And we love having access to the playback because you can access that at any time, 24/7. Just call the number, enter the access code. It will ask you for another code. You don't need that. Just hang on the line and it'll play the most recent prayer. And you can listen to that 24/7. It is a gift. We love seeing and knowing that people are calling all the time, 7 days a week, at many different hours of the day. And that's why it's here.
And you can call it as many times as you like. We've had the question, can I only call in once? As many times as you need to access and be centered in the truth. Give yourself that gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the other thing that's very important, along with prayer, are your prayer requests. And so if you have a prayer request, you can email prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org, and we will hold and know the truth for you. This is a wonderful way, whether you're beginning your week, if you want to get whatever it is that's on your heart and mind, get it off of your heart and mind, and allow us to hold and know that truth with you. And so you can walk throughout your day and throughout your week free and clear, but also just to know that you have souls, you have knowers that are praying and holding and affirming the truth with you. I know that it feels good to stand in that awareness, and that's why we and the prayer champions are here to stand in that awareness with you. So please make use of it because it's here.
Yeah, and it feels good to release it too. Not hold it in your mind, not sleep with it, not wake up with it. Just release it and know that someone else is knowing and holding and seeing the truth for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we have any first-time guests that are with us today, hello. Hey. Thank you for hanging out with us.
How you doing?
We know that there are so many people that week after week we're getting messages that folks are tapping into and finding out about this class and starting to watch it and starting to study along with us. So if you are a first-time guest, a first-time streamer with us, this number that's on the screen, text the word welcome to this number, and it will support you in being supported by us. We will be able to stay in touch with you and give you lots of good links and information and keep you up to date with what's going on with CSC as we move forward in the year and as we move forward in eventually what our reopening and regathering plan will look like. Text that number, just the word welcome. Don't text anything else. You text the word welcome to that phone number. You'll get a response back with a link. You enter your information and you're all set. Now, one of the reasons why this is very important is because of the next thing that we want to talk about, because today is God Talk Sunday, right? And so God Talk only happens in Zoom. It happens online in a private space on Zoom. And so if you want that link, if you want to attend the God Talk and you're not already on our mailing list, that's why you want to get on our mailing list. Now, what is the God Talk? The God Talk is the time that we have set aside each month for questions. We know that there's so many things that show up in your lives, particularly now as we're in the midst of this global pandemic. And it's like, how do I apply these spiritual truths to what actually is actually going on in my life? We're here to support you with that. Additionally, as we are all in various stages of mourning and grief right now, how do we use these teachings? How do we find solace? How do we find peace in the midst of moving through these stages of grief? And we want to support you in that as well. Mm-hmm. And so that happens today at 1 p.m. If you're already on our mailing list, you already have the Zoom link. Just look for the email that went out on any of the past Fridays this month, and you'll see the Zoom information there. But again, if you're not on the mailing list or for some reason you don't see the email, what you need to do is text, and I'll make sure you put that back on the screen. You want to text this number, 347-472-1078. Text the word welcome. What will happen is, again, you'll get a prompt to join the list. Once you've joined the list, then you will get an automatic email with the Zoom link and password. You have to have the Zoom link and password in order to participate, because what happens in the God Talk stays in the God Talk.
Absolutely. And those questions are only answered if you are in the room. Mm-hmm. Emailing us the questions, we won't see them. Mm-mm. And more importantly, it's the process that we've always used with God Talk, that if you have a question, you bring the question to that environment so that you can be supported with an answer.
Yes. And that forum is not recorded.
Nope.
It's private, right? Completely mm-hmm. private. It's not recorded. It's not shared. All right? Beautiful. Beautiful. So I think in this moment, we have the awesome opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry. One more announcement.
How could you forget?
I know. Next week, we are not having our regular class. We will be streaming a teaching. We will be streaming a class, a previously recorded class, but it will not be the Thrive Masterclass. So that means you'll have 2 weeks to do the reading and study and send in your questions if you need to. We will not be live, right? Next weekend is a holiday weekend. We honor that weekend. CSC is always closed on that weekend. And so that's what we'll be doing. But of course, because we have this beautiful technology and the ability to stream previously recorded class, that's what we're going to do. I promise it will be a teaching that will be valuable and insightful and wonderful. And so we look forward to you joining us in that format as well. But we will not be live. We will be off.
And we also want to honor the date that we're celebrating and hope that everyone else enjoys their time for Memorial Day weekend, the long weekend. Mm-hmm. Right now, it feels like everything is a continuous long weekend, right? But if we realize what we're honoring, what we're recognizing, that mm-hmm. sacrifice of those individuals, mm-hmm. We'll find a way to celebrate and honor those individuals and see it for what it really is.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. All right. So now it is time. It is time to be guided by PY in our meditation experience. So I will happily step aside and allow.
And allowing is what it's all about. Allowing ourselves to be here now. Allowing ourselves to be guided by the breath. Allowing ourselves to release any stress that we're currently holding. And this month we've been talking about, why is it we can allow? What is it that we find ourselves surrounded in, swimming in, connected to? God. And we rest in this God that we speak of, whatever you call that God, this consciousness, this field that is eternal. We rest in it. And so when we look out at the external world, it feels like there's so many reasons not to rest, not to let it go, to think about and worry about and plan for a future. But when we bring ourselves back to the present moment and realize that we rest in something, that something will propel us forward moment by moment by moment. And so we practice resting. We practice releasing. We practice bringing our minds into alignment with this love energy field. So let's close our eyes. And by closing the eyes, it signals the body very subtly and sometimes dramatically. It's time to rest. By closing the eyes, We signal the mind that whatever preceded this moment is gone. And we rest in the knowingness of what we're connected to by closing the eyes. Fear is gone, the past is gone, and the future is yet to be. And from this vantage point, we notice the breath. Whether it feels deep or feels shallow, we just notice without judgment that something is having its way with us, that something is beating our heart. And as we notice the breath, we notice the subtle signs of more relaxation with each round of breath. On the inhale, we draw more breath, more aliveness. On the exhale, we release and make room for more. There is no place where breath is not, and there is no place where God is not, so we rest. And from this resting place, let's take a more active role in moving the energy and flow of the breath. Inhaling through the low belly now. Inhale. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Inhale. In through the low belly. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Expanding the area of the breath, inhale all the way up through the rib cage now. Inhale. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Again, inhaling all the way up through the rib cage, expanding the lungs, expanding the altar for God. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release it all. Inhaling all the way up through the heart now, the center of our healing, the center of our infinite intelligence. Inhaling all the way up. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release it now. And inhale all the way up through the heart. Hold it there and imagining there what is being activated, healed, released. And now release the breath. This elongated breath signals the mind it can let go. This elongated breath, breathing in and all the way up. Let's take a few rounds on our own. Last time. Inhaling all the way up through the heart now. Hold it there. Creating a new set point, new reality, new experience. And sending the breath down the arms on the exhale, down the legs on the exhale, out the fingertips on the exhale, out the toes. Now drawing all of that energy that we sent out and more back in. And releasing. Out the crown of the head, out the fingertips, out the toes. I rest in God. I rest in truth. I rest in a healed mind. I rest in love. Feeling the relaxation of the shoulder blades, of the arms, of the legs, and of the mind. I will monitor the time. You just take the inward journey. And when the mind wanders, it's okay. Bring it back to this grounding truth that we rest in God. We rest now in God. With our eyes closed, we remember this time that our bodies relaxed, that our minds and hearts were opened. We remember and we take this knowingness into our physiology of rest, of relaxation, of being guided and held and loved and protected. As we rest in this knowingness, we rest in the answer. We rest in the truth of our being. And that truth brings a smile to our face. and warms every part of our experience. With our eyes closed, we remember that nothing is withheld from us. There is nothing for us to do, nothing more for us to be. We rest in God. And now let's become a little more active in our bodies. Maybe we wiggle the fingers and the toes. Maybe we lovingly draw the shoulders up by the ears and lovingly relax them down. Bringing our palms together at heart center and lightly touching our thumbs into our sternum, making that contact there with that healing heart. And slowly, easily bowing the chin towards the fingertips, creating space in the spine and space in our mind. Honoring the divine within us, honoring those that have come before us. And slowly flutter the eyes open, nice and easy gaze. Focusing in front of us on a point. When you're ready, inhale, raise the chin, raise the gaze. Namaste.
Yes, namaste. All righty. That felt good, y'all. Felt really good. So we're going to move into the book. I'm looking at the time. We have about an hour to move through this chapter. We have the God Talk at 1 o'clock, so we want to do our very best to stay on time and to give all of us a break before we move into the God Talk. So for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, who aren't aware of what this Thrive Masterclass, Living in Complete Prosperity, is all about, it is a study of this text, Spiritual Economics, by Eric Butterworth. If you don't have the book, go get the book. You can get it in all formats, digital, paperback, etc. You can also get it as an audiobook. However, if you get the audiobook, please also get the paper or digital copy, because there are paragraphs and sections that are omitted. If you go back to the very first week, first week we dealt with the preface and the introduction, which is not in the audiobook. And that's some of the most powerful stuff. Like, we had church just off of the preface and introduction, right? So make sure that you get that. Make sure that you get that. Also, for those who do not know, we created a blog post to continue to update the resources and links and things that we've been sharing throughout the class that we feel are good for your additional study, or to make your study more holistic, right? So you can go to celebrationsc.org/thrive. It'll take you to that post. And again, all of the resources that we've shared and mentioned up to this point are there, as well as some new resources. Finally, as you're reading and as you're studying, we know that questions may come up. And so we have set up this email address to receive those questions. So in your time during the week, when you're reading, you can send us an email, truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. Okay. And so to that end, we actually got a few questions.
Yes. Thank you for those.
This past week. And I want to touch on them. One is specifically related to the chapter that we're going to cover today. And so I think we'll be able to answer most of that in that time. We'll read it. And then another is about last week's chapter on gratitude. And so I want to tap into that question first, and then we'll move forward. So it says, when Butterworth takes us through a practice of feeling grateful, it's page 97 if you have the physical text, is that feeling of gratefulness equivalent to contentment? I noticed that gratefulness is not on the emotional guidance scale from Abraham Hicks, and was just trying to become aware of how gratefulness feels in my body without being grateful for something, but grateful in all things. Okay.
Good question.
So this is a great question. And so for those of you that may not be familiar with the teachings of Abraham Hicks, in the Ask and It Is Given text, which is sort of the foundational text of the Abraham Hicks teachings, it's where you should begin. It's where everyone should begin. We've taught a sermon series on it. I've taught a class, several classes actually based on it. And it is interesting, right, that the word gratitude is not actually here in the scale. But what we find is that number 7, contentment, is considered the first of the positive or upward moving emotions, versus number 8 is boredom, right? Now, what Abraham writes in Asking and Is Given, and if you have the text of Asking and Is Given, I encourage you to go back to that chapter where Abraham first introduces this emotional guidance scale. And what's very important is Abraham writes there that no word means the same thing for everybody. So these words that are here are just placeholders. PY talks about it all the time with A Course in Miracles. Words are but symbols of symbols, right?
Talked about it last week. This Friday, as a matter of fact.
Right. So that underlying idea, we know that these words don't fully point us to it. So it's interesting that the word gratitude isn't there, but contentment is a word that kind of speaks to what we're talking about in terms of being able to find that place of ease, that place of rest, that place of grace, that place of I'm satisfied with life, not because something is happening, but I have this inner satisfaction within myself. And so I encourage you even to go and look in the thesaurus, look at what are some of the other synonyms for contentment. Also look at what are some of the antonyms of contentment to help you to understand all of what that stage feels like. Because what's beautiful about contentment, it's not, joy is like ecstasy, right? I always think of that top emotion of joy as how I feel when I ride a roller coaster, right? And I love roller coasters and I love the adrenaline rush, right? None of us can live in that space and place 24/7. We shouldn't, right? That just wouldn't be good for a lot of reasons, even just physically, right? But we recognize that that there's this whole dynamic of emotions that can still keep me in an all is well place. Mm-hmm. I actually like to name number 7, that contentment. That's the all is well place, right? Which is what that feeling of gratefulness is all about. Grateful in all things versus for all things.
And it's interesting that all is well is the baseline, right? Most of us can't even or haven't even allowed ourselves to get to a consistent baseline of all is well. Mm-hmm. We fluctuate because of our externalized experience looking out. And sometimes we're here and sometimes we're not. But this baseline of all is well is so important because that becomes your new normal.
Yeah.
So you're no longer looking at life as, oh, I was going to say something, as, oh no, this. And so it dips you down. Your baseline of existence is all is well. Your baseline of beingness is all is well. And then you experience the range of emotions from that place, right? It's so important because none of us have consistently even stayed in all is well long enough to know what that feels like before we worry about going up the emotional scale, right? We dip ourselves up and come down. We have these huge gaps in emotion and we don't even maintain the baseline. Yeah. That's so important.
Yeah, so very important. So that was a wonderful question. And, we teach Abraham Hicks and love the teachings of Abraham Hicks and love to help it make sense and synthesize it with everything else. And so I love that question came up because sometimes what happens, we think that, oh, well, this teacher is saying something else and that teacher is saying something else. Well, they didn't use this word. Well, they didn't use that word. And it actually always harmonizes. And, it's one of the beautiful things that we love about teaching in the way that we teach is harmonizing these different teachers.
And you might, each teacher, each text has its own voice, its own lens. But what you're looking for is that thing, the through line. Mm-hmm. The truth that is underneath all of those things. And it doesn't matter if whatever text is your favorite. Mm-hmm. If it's true, it's going to point you back to the same ideas, the same concepts, even if the languaging is slightly different.
Always.
Right? And so that's why we have our library of truth, is what I call it, of texts that I refer back to again and again and again. And I find the joy in realizing, oh, this text says it, and this text says it, and this text says it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm pulling up the next question. So this is a chapter 5 and chapter 6 question. So this will take us into the study for today as well. So in chapter 5, the text states that the first demonstration of your faith is feeling. In these times, I've been struggling with symptoms of depression. I'm already diagnosed with panic disorder, so it is not surprising that I'm feeling these new feelings. I've been doing my best to focus on my connection to God by practicing TM meditation and gratitude journaling, affirmations, and created my I Am board. But there are stretches of days where it is a struggle. What do you suggest we do to keep our thoughts and feelings in the light of love when we are struggling with mental health? Okay. So the first thing that's important is I don't want to connect these two, right? Any more than we would connect it if I had a cold. I don't feel well when I have a cold, right? I just want to stay in bed. I don't feel good. That is not then an indictment on my connection to God, or, oh no, I'm not doing this right because, I want to stay in bed and just watch TV right. Mental health requires you to do those things that are require you to do those things that are supportive of you feeling well, right? And so it's important that you're following all of the instructions of your physician, your therapist, all of the people that you're working with, that you're doing all of these things. TM meditation is wonderful and great. It can be a supportive TM, that's transcendental meditation, is supportive, right? And many people who have mental health challenges utilize transcendental meditation. But it's part of a holistic program, right? That one thing is not the solution any more than just gratitude journaling is not the solution. And again, if I had a cold or was sick, I probably wouldn't be pulling out my gratitude journal while I'm sniffling and sneezing and
maybe
blowing
not
my
day
nose.
One.
Right.
Right. I would ease myself back into those things.
Right.
If you've been doing it consistently for any period of time, you have established a foundation. And so you don't have to worry that if there's a moment where the mind or the old way of being takes over, that you've lost all of that.
Yeah.
Right? It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. And what you're being called to do in those moments, you might not be called to journal, but you are called to be compassionate with yourself.
Yes. 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 And so when you say there are stretches of days where it's a struggle, again, that would be the equivalent of any of us if we were experiencing some sort of illness, right? There would be stretches of days where we may not feel like meditating, right? We may not feel 100%, and that's okay.
Right.
So we cannot use these spiritual tools as a way to manipulate ourselves out of something, or so that we don't we're not fearfully acting as though, oh no, now my life is going to be terrible because I'm not feeling the feelings of gratitude in this moment, right?
Right.
Not so.
Right. And so it feels as if there's a little bit of forgiveness that is needed in terms of your past feelings and your mental illness. There needs to be some self-forgiveness as opposed to judgment that, oh no, this thing is happening again, or oh no, this is what I did to myself in the past before I came into these teachings. That is so important because the ego is very subtle in its ability to take what we learn, new things, and then begin to use them against ourselves, right? So this process of awakening is important to realize who and what you are. Knowing who and what you are also means that God knows who and what you are. It is not judging you.
Right.
It is not worried if you have a dip in your emotions or any mental activity.
Right.
It's not doing that.
Right.
So we, if anything, practice that self-compassion.
Yeah. I'm reminded of something we read in scripture, in biblical scripture, where sin abounds, grace doth more abound. Now, sin is simply error, right? A mistake, right? And so there will be plenty of times in our lives where we're not on point. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Plenty of times. But what the teaching is saying, grace is more than all of that, right? It's the reason why if you can't think today, I want $1 million, and millions of dollars fall upon your head at the same time, you can't think today, oh, I'm an unworthy piece of mess and I don't even deserve to be on this planet, and immediately something happens to you, right? There's grace. And grace abounds, much more abounds. It's bigger than any of our not feeling 100% today. Oh my goodness. Somebody need to hear that's good news.
Yes.
Right? That's such good news.
Because the other piece of this, when you focus in on the not feeling well today, it extends to the next day because of the judgment that you keep holding about it. Right? We have to bring ourselves into the present moment and release that feeling of judgment and guilt so that we can stay present to where the grace is. Right? And that can help move us out of wherever we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is an amazing question. And I feel like, thank you for sending it in, because I think a lot of people have it in there from their perspective, and we all need to be looking at it, especially in this month, which is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? These things are not isolated. We bring this into a holistic, integrated way of being on the earth. Right?
Yes. And we're seeing in the comments that it resonated. People are grateful for the question being asked. And that's beautiful. And so the second question is about chapter 6. And I think we'll be able to sort of answer and come back to this question as we move through the chapter. Chapter 6 is all about finding and doing work that calls you to be your highest self. That's not true.
Yes, let's say it.
So your summation and understanding of the chapter then colors the question, right? That's not what chapter 6 is about. It's not about finding and doing work that calls you to be your highest self, right? What chapter 6 is about is changing your definition of success and then how you do your work. That's what chapter 6 is about. Right. This is something that I've tried to figure out and finally found within the last few years. This is being a production manager for theater and dance. With this pandemic, I'm not able to do that work for the foreseeable future. As of today, as we know as New Yorkers, Broadway is closed until Labor Day. I'm finding it so difficult for me to apply for jobs in other careers because it feels like I'm giving up on my theater career. During visioning and 90 Days to Greatness, I found a different perspective on my theater career and exactly what I want to pursue. So it feels like I'm betraying that part of me. How can I honor what God calls me to do when I am not able to do that very thing during the pandemic? So again, we're going to come back to this question because part of it is rooted in developing a different understanding of what the chapter is talking about.
Yes, a deeper understanding, right?
Right, because what we're talking about is what's interesting right now is there's been a shift and a change in the work that you may be doing, but the prosperity is in how you do the work, right? And so in this moment, the lens that you're looking through is a lens of lack, which means that opportunities aren't going to show up, right? And so what's even interesting is you think about visioning, now is a great time to vision because you're asking, what is God's idea of itself as my life now?
Now, right? Just because you get an insight onto your life from visioning before, we are eternal beings, ever expanding. And so that vision might be morphing a little bit, right? It might become more into clarity where you thought it was this. It's moving you in another direction. And so, you can't view it through the lens of fear, doubt, and worry, which is really lack. Right? Oh, I thought I nailed it down. Right?
So this is a beautiful understanding, and I pray that as we move into this chapter, that this will be really beneficial. So
I love these questions. We've been doing a lot in these questions.
Yeah, this is great. So the title of chapter 6, Work and the Success Syndrome, right? So here's what we're talking about. There's a success syndrome. It's running rampant in our lives. It's running rampant in the Western world. Specifically, it's running rampant in this unequal capitalistic system that we're living in. And so we got to change that, right? And it starts with our consciousness. So in the study of spiritual economics, we read, nothing is more basic or more rife with mistaken beliefs than our attitudes toward work. Why do you work? You may smile at the question, for it seems perfectly obvious that everyone works to make a living. However, if this is the only reason you can come up with, then it is one of the errors that needs to be unlearned. It is an attitude that may well be frustrating your creative flow. I think about this often because we use that term, what do you do for a living? I don't do nothing for a living. I'm alive.
Hey.
I don't do anything for a living, right? But that's the question that we ask ourselves. And I was reminded, I lived in Jersey for a long time and would commute in from Jersey into the city and, into Penn Station. And what something that struck me over the years is I would see the same homeless people year after year after year after year. They were familiar faces. I think my face might have even been familiar to them. And one day it hit me. I was like, they're not doing anything for a living. Now, I don't know their story. I mean, there's so many things that happen that lead to the experience of homelessness. But it crystallized something for me that they're not doing anything for a living, right? And so it helped me to magnificently shift this understanding. I don't do anything for a living.
Yes.
Right? I mean, even if you could ask somebody, well, how do you earn money? What do you do to earn money? I mean, even that can be interesting because there are people that aren't doing anything and are earning money, right?
Receiving money.
Right, receiving money, right? So we move forward. What are you getting out of your work, right? If you respond in terms of salary figures, fringe benefits, and executive perks, then you are underpaid. Not that your employer is inadequately compensating you. That is something else. What we are referring to is that by the evidence of your narrowness of vision, you are shortchanging yourself. Did anybody, as you were reading this, you came to this awareness that, wait, my narrowness of vision is shortchanging me? I realize that I've been viewing myself through the lens of my work, or I've been viewing my value. I've been thinking that I make a living through work. That's narrow vision and thus shortchanging you.
Right. And if you're, again, making a living, what happens when you, quote unquote, retire or transition into the next phase of your life? Then your value is diminished. And we see that with a lot of people. They don't know who to be once they no longer can identify themselves with making a living or the things that they get from work.
Now, moving down to the next highlight. If your attitudes about work in general and your job in particular are not right, then truly you are working against yourself. You may seek diligently to demonstrate prosperity, but unless you unlearn your error thoughts about work, you will forever be out of sync with the creative flow of the universe.
Wow.
Is anybody in here ready to unlearn their error thoughts about work? Are you ready to get back in sync with the creative flow? Yes. Right? And so we move forward. And he uses this idea, this quote from was it Froebel? The German educator. The true origin of humanity's activity and creativeness lies in our increasing impulse to embody outside of ourselves the divine and spiritual element within us. So now we're getting to this underlying idea of what's going on. It's a tremendous realization. What if our young people could be graduated, 2020, into their work life with a preconditioning of this awareness? Now, here's principle right here. Work is and should be so considered by every worker a giving process. Don't get trapped in the era of equating what you earn with the work you do. Let your work, whatever it may be involved, be an outworking of the creative flow, engaged in through the sheer joy of fulfilling your divine nature. You will prosper, and you should do so, but it will not be because you have made money in your job. The work and the job is the means by which you build a consciousness of giving, which in turn gives rise to an outworking or receiving flow. It is a subtle distinction, but an extremely important one. This is the principle, y'all. And we are not taught this. And definitely as people of color, we're not taught this. I mean, we could go on and on, right? Work as its principle. You hear us talk about giving and receiving all the time in the giving portion of the service, right? We talk about find your joy number, that when you give in joy, right, you receive equally. This is what really work is. Work is a reflection of the principle of giving and receiving. Right. And so when we think about that, see, again, if we're making a living and we're trying to earn, I go to work so that they can give me money.
Which means you empty.
Exactly. Right.
And you're trying to get filled up by the job, the title, the amount of money, the benefits. You're not realizing that I already wake up with the havingness in my being. And I'm getting ready to give of this have. Right? Right.
And so this is why I highlighted here in red. When we're operating in this error thought of about work, then what Butterworth says is there's no real giving, only bartering. Now, let's think about it for a second, because we know the energy of bartering, right? And some people really know how to barter. Some people barter from a place of fear, doubt, worry. Some people barter from a place of intimidation, right? People use all kinds of things to barter, but that energy is not going to get you prosperity, because you can only barter based on what you think you have, based on what you think your value is. You can only barter based on what you think they have or they don't have. And then that receiving person, they're living in their fear, doubt, worry. Well, I'll give you this, but I ain't going to give you this. Well, if they say this, then I'll say that, right? That's not prosperity. That's not the creative flow. That's not God.
There should be always an even exchange.
An even exchange.
Right. And then that is not bartering, because in bartering, I'm trying to make sure I get mine and I'll give you a little. Right. We barter with God all the time.
Right.
God, if you do this, I'll do that.
And so he says, this is a selling your soul for a mess of pottage. All the elements needed to fulfill the prosperity law for you are missing. Right. And this is why, and I know I've experienced this, I've lived it, and I know many of you have. You had the good job, or you have a good job. You had the salary. Like, everything on paper was like, I'm good, but something still wasn't right. You still weren't satisfied. You still wasn't happy. You still had attitude when you went into work, but you making 10 times more than other people all over the planet, right? Like, what's going on? Because you were bartering.
Right. And I'd like to rethink this idea of selling your soul for a mess of pottage. We can't sell our soul.
Right.
We can disconnect from it.
Right.
Right. And it feels like our soul is lost to us. Right. So let's clear that up. Your soul is always going to be there. It is the constant thing. It is that constant connection. But you can feel disconnected where it feels like you lost something.
And so he goes on, he highlights this university professor that talks about this idea: the university pays me for doing what I would gladly do for nothing if I could afford it. Most persons might laugh at his naivete. However, what he is saying is that his work is not just a place to tediously make a living, but an opportunity to joyously live his making. In other words, he is looking at his teaching work in terms of the privilege it gives him to grow as a person. And growth is what life is all about, not just paychecks and fringe benefits, but growth. It is probably true that the best living is made by those workers whose chief motivation is to give themselves away. Right? And that's not that's not sacrifice.
Right. That's not sacrifice.
Hear this, hear this.
Give till there's nothing left.
Right.
But we're giving from the overflow.
Right. You're giving from the overflow. And recognizing that in your giving, there's growth. Right? It is sad but true that the professor is unusual, for one of the greatest problems in the Western world today is the Great Depression of workers' attitudes. There's been a steady erosion of old-fashioned work ethic, leading to a loss of a sense of work being done in the context of the whole person, right? And so he goes on and he highlights there may be 3 reasons for this depression of work attitudes. One, he talks about the growing trend of specialization towards computerization and automated production, right? Which is true to a point, but we've actually, given the time that this was written and sort of where we are now, I think that we're finding and we're seeing so many people that are creatively being able to use technology to give. Right, to give of themselves and create that growth. Right, we're able to use technology even to learn new skills and develop new skills in ways that simply weren't possible for our elders' generations. Right. In the second attitude, he says the changing values of society, where the good job has come to mean the high salary. This has led to job hopping for work that will pay more money. People will often leave jobs they like to take a better paying job they really don't like at all, right? And then, of course, number 3, the materialistic and gadget-conscious culture, which deems its necessities more and more expensive things, which requires more and more money, and the job as the place to earn it. This has led to what is called moonlighting, where the worker may hold down 2 or more jobs in which he or she works all hours in order to try to keep up with a standard of living.
Right. And that's different from understanding that in this country and in the world, there should be a base standard by which we all should be able to live, to wake up in the morning with health care. Right?
Absolutely.
That you're not hopping job to job so that you can get better benefits.
Right.
That standard of living should be in place for everybody. And so you take that out of the equation, and then the job that you choose is based on what we're talking about. If you take out the fact that many people are living check to check, that has nothing to do with what he's talking about.
No.
He's talking about if in this country, and it is possible, that we all have this level of existence right? That we all should be able to have. Everything else he's talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a recognized, and I think we talked about this in the previous weeks, and this idea of desire, right? So often the things that we're desiring is because of a perception of emptiness within ourselves. We're trying to fill holes of unworthiness, right? We're trying to fill or cover over trauma that needs to be healed, right? And so we recognize that that's so much of what's fueled materialism, right? That's so much of what's fueled the greed and the gadget consciousness of our culture, right? And so then that causes us to operate in this error thinking or success syndrome around work, where we're no longer operating from a place of love, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but also understanding that our work is a service, right? We're giving, but we give from a consciousness of understanding the principles of prosperity. As I give, I receive. Yes, yes, yes. It's all coming back to me, right? We give from that principle, right? So I'm not just giving, oh, this company's so wonderful, I'll stay here all day and night. No. Right? That's sacrifice. But what we're saying is that if we start to think about work as giving from this perspective of the law of giving and receiving, we will begin to have new results, right? I'm going to just read this highlight. There's a tendency to deal with our work life almost as if it were a life sentence from which we may ultimately retire as time off for good behavior. I mean, this is what the setup has been for us, right? That's what retirement is, right? We ultimately get to retire for good behavior. This truly, this confusion of work attitudes gives rise to all kinds of breakdowns: employment, financial, and even physical. Personnel people often refer to individuals as entering the labor market, as if they sell themselves and their services in exchange for the wherewithal to exist.
If that doesn't want to make you change your consciousness around work,
right?
The labor market.
I'm entering the labor market, right? That sounds like slavery to me.
It is.
Right? And some people describe a job that they have taken just to get by saying it's a living. In this consciousness, it is anything but a living. It might be more accurate to characterize it as a drab existence. And in the process of that existence, those people may not only have subtle feelings of frustration and resentment, but as effectively as they had put a rubber band around a finger. They are cutting off the creative flow. There is simply no way in which people can change their lives from indigence to affluence. Affluence is one of our words. I think it's from week 1 or week 2, until they alter some of their underlying thoughts and feelings towards work. If you don't have that highlighted, highlight it. If you haven't written it down, you might want to write that down, right? That's a truth statement. There is simply no way in which I can change my life from indigence to affluence until I alter some of my underlying thoughts and feelings towards work.
No matter how much money you have.
Right? And he talks about then, right, there are these people who do things that try to get by, right? When workers work for a paycheck for which they have done as little as they can get by with. Y'all know, you probably work with some people like that right now. They do the bare minimum, right? But they still get their check. They're creating all kinds of hidden frustrations for which they will have to pay the price because there is spiritual law involved. They may think they can get away with slipshod work, fudging on their timesheet and calling in sick to get a day off. And they may well get away with it, but they can never get away from it. The motivations that directed them to do these things is from a level of their consciousness. Ultimately, they will have to pay the piper, for it is an inexorable law, right? And I actually I highlighted that word because I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that word, what it means, right? Because when we're talking about law, right, in a way that is impossible to stop or prevent. This is how law works. Now that's good news, right? When we're working with the law, right? When we're working it, right? It is impossible to stop or prevent the outworking of the law. But that's always true, whether we're talking about the positive or the negative. It's inexorable. Can't be stopped. Can't be prevented. This is why we have to learn how to make conscious use of it to work with it, right? It reminds me of what Ernest Holmes says. It will either be your taskmaster or your servant. But the law is going to work either way. It's either going to serve you or it's going to be your taskmaster. And that's all about our consciousness because it is commanded by our consciousness.
Right. And you think about those people that show up in that way at work, and you might even have been one of those people, right? It's if you really look at it, if you really could look at it from their lens and their trajectory of experience in this world so far, you realize that they didn't always operate this way.
Nope.
That there began to become a pattern of belief that leaded to resentment, that leaded to behavior, and now they're in this cycle or circle that they don't even understand how to get out of. Right? And if you have been that person, part of what we're understanding about these teachings is not just to manifest cars, it's to become aware and to awaken to the truth of how we're using law and principle. Right? Those people might not even be aware that they're doing that. If you've been that person, you weren't aware.
Right.
There had to be a point in time, a choice point, where a thought got implanted and it began to be the primary thought, and then it manifested into, oh, I hate getting up today to go to this place. Oh, I look at everybody here. It began to be the lens by which they viewed their whole experience, and then it had to outpicture as only given the minimum.
Yep.
Because of the amount of resentment that was there, what else could you give?
Yep.
Right? And if you're becoming aware that this is how you've been, because all of us have been that way, I can say I have.
Yes.
Right? I no longer go back to that. I just forgive myself and move forward from knowing, oh, there's a new way of me thinking and believing and operating.
Yep. And so we go on. Life is a growth process, and we grow through giving. See, all of these, I'm telling you, like that whole sentence right there, you could live off of that sentence. Now, why do I say that? Because it sounds good, right? We grow through giving. But think about let's think about nature. Let's think about the seed. The seed has to give itself to the soil. The seed has to break open and surrender itself to making sure, to the sunshine, to the rain, or to the farmer or the gardener, right? It gives of itself. It gives of itself. And then out of that giving, what happens? It grows. Right? It receives something from all of these things that it surrendered to, trusting that what I look like right now is this little seed. There's something more in me. There's something more that I can be. There's something more that I can become. There's something more that I can produce. But I have to give of myself. I have to give myself to the soil. That's the spiritual principle, y'all. So that sentence sounds nice. Life is a growth process, and we grow through giving. You know that, right? You know that about the life of a seed. Our lives are just another outpicturing of a seed.
Right. And what is the seed giving itself to? This soil that is completely, has all the nutrients, has everything it needs in it. So you're giving yourself back to this source that it can be using and expanding. Right.
And so it's important to be conscious of that, because again, these can sound like wonderful platitudes. We grow through giving. And so, we get into this woo-woo place around giving. And that I'm in the principal place around giving. Right? This works, right? It works just like when I plant an apple seed in good ground, in proper soil, right? It's going to yield not only a sapling that then grows into a strong tree, but then that tree yields fruit, which then that fruit can yield more trees and multiplies over and over and over again beyond my lifetime. Right? It's principle. This ain't no, feel good, like I said, woo-woo stuff. I mean, because we get that. And particularly now, there's all this charity and, it's nice to give. It's good to give. That's not what giving is about, y'all. Giving is a principle that God, that life, that consciousness responds to, right? And that's why we must understand it. Thus, no matter what the circumstance, if we do less than our very best in what we may be doing, no matter what the recognition or the reward, we are storing up what the Easterners might call bad karma. We may wonder, what is wrong in my life? Why can I not demonstrate prosperity? Consciousness. Whosoever hath, to him shall be given. Whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. It is fundamental law. There is no way that prosperity can be demonstrated outside the law of consciousness, right? And so you can't half give, just like you can't put half of a seed in the ground and think you're going to get a tree. Hello. Or just put the seed, I'll just lay on top of the soil and then see what happens. It's the same thing, y'all, right? And so he goes on, you may protest, but I do all that I am paid for. However, work should be an experience of growth. If you are not growing in the process of doing your work, then something must be wrong. And I love here in this chapter, he quotes Khalil Gibran. It's from the prophet. It's the poem on work. And we actually, I put a link to the poem, the full poem, because I think it's powerful to read in the study links and resources. Khalil Gibran lays it right on the line. If you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, then you should quit your job and go sit at the temple and beg alms for those who work with joy. A hard lesson, but an important insight into consciousness. And what I actually love before that line, before that particular line in the poem, Khalil Gibran writes, "Work is love made visible."
Yes.
So that's the thing. Gibran says, "Work is love made visible." So if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, then you should quit your job and go sit at the temple, right? And that gave me the thought. I was thinking about the that's just a wonderful affirmation that you can think about or put somewhere, right? When you're at work, when you're at your work is love made visible, right? And so every day, what we're doing is I'm making love visible, which I actually like better than this idea about earning wings, which we'll talk about in a second.
Right, love made visible is a better.
Right. And so
way of looking at it.
Right. So he says an effective commercial for one airline says we have to earn our wings every day. And yes, you have to earn the level of consciousness by which you are sustained and prospered every day. You may say, I've been on this job for years and I know the work so well that I could do it with my eyes closed. And you probably can. But what is happening to you as a person? You must earn your wings, not please your employer, but for your spiritual well-being. What you do in your work every day may not affect your salary, but it vitally affects your focus on consciousness that regulates the flow of affluence. And so he says you can use this daily affirmation, I'm going to earn my wings today. But I would encourage us to begin to use the affirmation, not that I'm going to earn my wings today, but that I'm going to make love visible today.
Right.
Right.
Because I have a problem with this idea of earning anything. I'm going to realize, I'm going to allow, but earning implies that there's something that I have to do to be granted this thing that I already have.
Exactly.
I'm going to realize it. I'm going to make it more visible every day. But earning it, it's a subtle thing. But
yeah, right. Because then what happens if we're in the place of thinking that we're earning something that subtly puts us in the place of we're pleasing God, right?
Yes.
We're dotting I's and crossing T's, right? And so I'm over here, God's happy with me. Look at my life. You're not earning your wings.
I'm
right?
earning my wings.
Right.
And what wings we talking about?
Right.
Right?
Right. So this underlying idea of I'm going to make love visible today. Oh man, that feels so good.
And of course, in Miracles talks about that. That's what your true occupation is.
Yeah.
I'm here to extend love every day. It doesn't care what career you choose to do it in.
Right. Right.
And so all this talk about I got to find my purpose. Your purpose is to extend love every day in every way. And whatever career you choose to do it is completely up to you.
Right.
God does not have a idea about what you should do.
Right. Right.
It's talking about how you should be.
Right. And so that's that underlying idea, going back to the question that we received on this chapter of, knowing, being clear about your purpose and calling in theater. And it's like, oh, now I can't do that. Right. Your daily opportunity is to make love visible. And again, going back to visioning, right? What is God's idea of itself as my life now? And what the questions of the life visioning process are moving us into is really asking, how does love want to express through me now?
How does it want to show up through me? A Course in Miracles, Miracle Workers, prayer.
Right.
Right. Where is it sending me? Where is love sending me today? What does love want me to say? How does love want me to show up today?
Exactly. And so out of that, that's then through visioning and through posturing into the direction of that question, what begins to happen is then you tap into inspired ideas. Then you may see your experience in theater in a new way. Then you may randomly get a call from someone who needs your experience in a way that you never thought it would be needed or useful in Zoom, right?
Right, in Zoom world, yes.
Right, or whatever, or just virtually. And so it's important that you move yourself into that posture, which that posture and that focus is, of course, the opposite of fear, doubt, and worry, loss and lack, thinking that you've lost something, but recognizing that even if it looks different, the point and the purpose for all of us is to make love visible today.
Yeah, Khalil's my man.
And so we always have an opportunity to do that, right? Always. There's a common tendency to do a skill a job skillfully and just settle into a rut, typing the job and limiting yourself. One man was protesting to his employer that a person of far less experience had been promoted over him. He said, "Why have I had 25 years of experience on this job? Why I have had 25 years experience on this job?" The wise employer replied, "That's not correct. You have had 1 year's experience 25 times over." He was doing the work, but he wasn't earning his wings. He wasn't making love visible. He wasn't growing. A corporation prospers by consciousness too, the collective consciousness of its workforce. I'm just skipping ahead to the highlight. If you, as just one worker, are lacking in the alive, alert, awake, joyous, and enthusiastic consciousness by which you do your job, certainly you are frustrating yourself and you are not growing as a person. But what you should never forget is that you are not giving in that special way which adds to the growth of the company. Thus, he or she has given more, even if it means promoting another worker over you. Consciousness works inexorably. Same word again, right? And one of the things that this reminded me of, I was thinking about PY and myself when we started Celebration Spiritual Center. There were a couple decisions that we made. Now, the first choice we made before we opened the doors, we said that we would not take a salary for at minimum the first full year of CSC, right? We could have made a different decision, but that was something that we did, right? Now, part of that was understanding this principle, understanding giving and receiving, right? Understanding that if we give and make work visible, we must receive. And so one of the things that happened easily and effortlessly, I decided to go back into working in IT. A beautiful position opened up that I'm still there, working with a wonderful human rights organization. I have grown so much by being there. And I've received more opportunity by being there than I was even expecting, right? But I gave of myself wholeheartedly at CSC. I've given of myself wholeheartedly there. And the what I've reaped, it far exceeds that, right? Now, the other part of that, you can go back, right? Watch videos of us from 2013. Our level of service or joy or how we showed up, it's the same, right? We didn't all of a sudden get happy because now we get a salary, right? The other piece of that, and this was the bigger decision, because we had made that decision, right? We thought we knew something. So we have our first service on March 31st, 2013. There was about 200 people there. It was Easter Sunday. It was wonderful. I know many of you, as I'm seeing you in the comments, many of you were there. Sydney, Reverend Shauna, I see y'all. I remember y'all were there. And it was a wonderful service. Again, about 200 people. We had this big location with projectors
all the bells
and screens
and whistle screens.
Wonderful, right?
Audio. It was just great.
And so then we got to the next Sunday, right? And so we had like a little green room area, and PY and I would come out about 10 to 15 minutes before service started. And aside from our volunteers, there were like 5 or 6 people in the congregation.
Those crickets.
And I remember feeling like this feeling in my stomach, and my heart sank because, we had come off of this high, and, we had made commitments, financial commitments to, the space that we had secured. And, it looked like we were going to be good. We had a number of expenses, and there was nobody, nobody there. That place was echoey, right?
It was cavernous.
Yeah. And I remember clearly my consciousness brought me back to center quickly. And what I heard within myself was, Greg, from this day forward, you must preach, teach, and sing like the place is full.
Yeah.
I had to make that decision with it. And we looked at each other, right? We said, we have to make this decision now that we are going to act in a way and give in a way, right? Not give like, oh, well, there's only 5 or 6 people here, so we'll operate in 5 or 6 people energy.
Right. And if you're an actor, you know that you don't just play to the house. You play to the expanded understanding of what could be there. You don't act like, oh, there ain't but one person here at my show tonight, right?
Right. And so when I read that a corporation prospers by consciousness too, the collective consciousness of its workforce, that's what I think about when I think about the decisions that we made 7 years ago, right? That were very deliberate and very clear, but not just the decisions, but then how we showed up day in and day out, regardless of what we saw, regardless of, it's funny now when you can look back and look at the records and we see like how small the offerings were, right? And the offerings didn't meet all of our expenses, right? And we had so many different experiences. And now we look at the prosperity of CSC, and there's more than enough, right? More than enough. And the prosperity in the people, and the prosperity in the resources, and the prosperity in our volunteers. I mean, we have a whole army of volunteers now.
Shout out
Right?
to Team Celebrate.
Yes, yes. Shout out to Team Celebrate, right? And that's and so that's the consciousness that we're talking about, right? And so hear us. We will never teach anything that we don't believe or know to be true, because we've proven it in our own lives. And again, this is not just about church or spirituality, because at the same time, again, so many opportunities, particularly in those first few years of work, and just opportunities to make money, and a call here, hey, Greg, can you do this? Or, hey, Yolanda, can you just come and work for a couple of days? We'll pay you anything, and we'll pay all your expenses, right? All of these things were happening in beautiful ways because we operated from making love visible through our work and recognizing that we were giving. And when we give, we grow.
Right. And this is not to say, like he says, quit your job, right? We're not advocating, just chuck it all. We're saying chuck your consciousness.
Yeah.
And it will guide you to what's next, right? I love this idea of, talking about how a company can set a salary based on who they think you are and what they value from you. But only you can determine your level of success.
Yeah.
Only you can decide what this all means to you and for you and about you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
They set that salary before you even show up based on what they think. But what do you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we go on, you may say, but my job is not imaginative. There is no future in it. There is no job with a future in it. The future is in the one who does the job. When you do your work imaginatively, the job will become more meaningful and interesting, and you will become more effective in it. You can change your job, any job, if you change your attitudes about it. We keep coming back to this. I think I've quoted Wayne Dyer every week. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. This is another way of saying that. And see, again, we think it applies over here. Oh, well, I heard it about relationships that work. Or, oh, I heard it about, finances that work over here. You can change your job, any job, if you change your attitude about it.
Right. If you change your consciousness, you will be led to stay, to go, what changes, right? All of that will happen. I guarantee, I promise it, because I've lived it.
Yeah. 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 You may want to look elsewhere to find a better job, but that can be an escape. It is the eternal hope of finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Of course, there could be a better job for you somewhere else, but the starting place in making the change is right where you are, right? Agree with thine adversary. He's going to scripture. It means settle with your adverse feelings. When you discipline yourself to earn your wings or make love visible every day, one of two things will happen. One, your consciousness will bring about a change in the job, making it right for you and you for the company. Or two, another job will open up for you where a transfer will be effected in a way that is beneficial to all concerned. Right. I love that, because that echoes Napoleon Hill, right? I will not engage in any transaction that does not mutually benefit all whom are concerned, or all whom it affects, right? And so that's actually how you know then when you're moving in that spot. You've had those moments, right, where you were promoted and it opened the door for somebody else. It was the perfect person for that position. You were the perfect person for your position, and there was just harmony, right? It mutually benefited all concerned, all whom it affected, right? And so I know many of you have come to us, you talked to us about your job or things you want to do. What's the first thing we said? We tell you, no, don't leave right away unless you're being abused, right? There's sexual harassment, or something terrible going on. Of course, it may make the most sense to leave right away. But what we recognize is that by starting, as he says, to make the change right where you are, right, and start from this consciousness, from this place, one of two things will happen. Either your consciousness will bring about a change in the job, it'll be right for you and the company, or another opportunity will open up there or somewhere else, and it'll be mutually beneficial. It'll be easily and effortless.
It goes to Abraham Hicks, vibration, right?
Yep.
When I change my vibration, things vibrate out and things vibrate in.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same idea. And right, most people don't want to do these two things because they think it takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just because the consciousness that you're currently operating has been there for a while doesn't mean it takes an equal 30 years for that consciousness to be transformed.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't take that long, but it does take focus.
Yep.
It does take what Course in Miracles would call mental vigilance. It does require you to begin to look at those thoughts, not judge them.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It does require that. And once you do that consistently, it doesn't take 30 years.
Nope. Mm-hmm. Nope. So I'm going to move forward because I'm looking at our time.
Yes.
When you
So
work,
good today, yeah.
when you work in the right consciousness, when your work becomes organically a part of your whole self, and when you do your work out of that commitment, no matter what other people do, no matter what the compensation may be, doing it for the health of your own soul, then you open the door by which affluence of the universe flows forth into your life. Mm-hmm. It will do little good to run frantically to a truth teacher asking for prosperity prayers. God can do no more for you than God can do through you, right? So often this is what we do, right? Prayer champions, PY, PG, I need a prosperity prayer, right? Or, oh, let me get in this prosperity class so I can manipulate something, right? But you can't do that, right? God can do no more for you than God can do through you. And how is God operating through us? Through our consciousness. Through what it is that we believe, right? Through what it is that we truly value, through what it is that we truly think about work, or if we're earning a living or making a living, right? And so he goes on, begin to do what you do in the awareness that you are working with God for the releasing of your own inner splendor. And when you earn your wings in consciousness, right, the affluence of heaven and earth will stream into you. And this is, we talked about this correction with wings, and I love that he puts it here, that we're earning our wings in consciousness, right? We're not trying to earn wings from our employer. We're not trying to earn wings from a company. We're not trying to earn wings from a government or from a city or from another person. We must earn them in consciousness. And so this is why, again, I'm going to make love visible. That has to be, I have to have an inner awareness of the love that dwells within me in order to express it.
Absolutely.
And so he goes on and he quotes, again, please go to the resources, read this whole poem. It will, the hair will stand up on the back of your neck because it's so beautiful and powerful. But Khalil Gibran, when you work, you fulfill a part of Earth's furthest dream, assigned to you when that dream was born. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are in truth loving life. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret, right? And again, this is what we're getting to. Visioning is coming up, and we've talked about it over the past few weeks in different ways. It's come up, but that's that idea. When I'm tapped into this, there's something that life, he says, Earth's furthest dream, and it was assigned to us. There's something that life itself wants to express through us.
Right, beyond this thing physical wants to express through us.
And that's the place that we're operating from, right? That I'm fulfilling a part of Earth's furthest dream. And each of us are fulfilling an aspect of that dream. No one of us contains the whole dream. Wow. Life's inmost secret is the divine pattern in you, which you can only really know when you are giving yourself in service. And so he defines the word vocation here. I want to make sure we get that word. When you are intimate with life's secret, your work becomes your calling. The word vocation comes from the Latin meaning, I call. Begin to think of your work as a calling. The creative process is a calling. Singing its song in you as you. The Latin is vocare or vocare, which means to call. And so you even see that voca, right? Vocal, right? That calling forth, right? And so what we recognize then is that anything that we're doing, we're calling forth from within us things within our being. This is why we say we can make love visible. I'm calling forth love in, through, and as me, expressing in this moment. And so it doesn't matter what we're doing, because we will be doing different things, right? Sometimes you may be sweeping. I may be sweeping. I may be putting out the trash, right? But I can still call forth that love and that care that's within me, knowing that I'm making love visible.
And then tune into that feeling in that present moment of how it feels to make love visible, how it feels. right? We so often avoid that. It feels good to make love visible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no amount of money that can give you that feeling.
None. None. And so, as the title of this chapter is "Work and the Success Syndrome," we then get into this part of talking about and thinking about success. There's a definition of success that I love, Earl Nightingale. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And it's this understanding that success is not about arriving somewhere. I love that it's that idea of the progressive realization, right? We are continually, progressively realizing the worthy ideal that we are.
Right.
Right? And so that's what success is, right? The success syndrome, this whole thing that we have here, that we experience in the Western world of, I'm successful when I have this. I'm successful when I have the house. I'm successful when I have the kids. I'm successful when I have, I've reached a certain salary. I'm successful when I vacation here. I'm successful, right? All of these things that are ultimately meaningless, right? Many of them enjoyable. But ultimately meaningless in the grand scheme of things. That's not the progressive realization of a worthy idea.
And meaningless doesn't mean that they don't have value.
Right.
Usually we just don't know what it is. Because if it's something that I can assign a meaning to and you can assign a meaning to, if there's no universal meaning, then it's only true for you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so what is success for me might be different for you.
Exactly.
And this idea of a worthy goal being expressed and realized, I'm a worthy goal, right? Because I came from the divine mind. It's expressing itself as a worthy ideal.
Yep. And so I'm moving down to this highlight. Progression is not measured alone by the title on the office door. More important is what people have done with themselves. When viewed through the success syndrome, people should be dissatisfied with their work. Many people are influenced by this pressure, thus are unable to put their full effort into their work, feeling that they should be climbing, prospering, succeeding. Instead of earning their wings every day, they yearn for bigger planes. There's a song in there.
Woo.
It is a drive that is basic to humankind, but unfortunately, instead of seeing it as the cosmic urge to be more, it is normally interpreted as the desire to have more. This is a deep teaching. The cosmic urge to be more. You can't turn that off, right? Because life is ever expressing itself. I love how the Tao Te Ching says, endlessly pulsating, endlessly creating. The spirit of the valley never dies. That's the nature of life. That's the nature for all of us, that there's this thing that's constantly, I mean, we've seen it, even in as much as we can measure, the billions of years old the earth is, and measure through the crust, the different layers of the earth, and see the fossils and the different types of beings that inhabited this planet that no longer exist. We understand that life is continually unfolding. There's a cosmic urge, right? We keep finding new galaxies, and new black holes are being formed, and new stars are being formed, new suns are being formed, new planets, new moons are being formed. That's the cosmic urge to be more. Life can't help but express itself in that way, right?
Its eternal nature is to express and to extend.
Right. But we have misinterpreted that underlying urge as the desire to have more. Right? And so then that's what ends up driving us. And again, as we talked about in the chapter on faith, many times our desire to have more is based on, when I have more, then I think I'll be more.
Right.
When I have more, then I think I'll be appreciated. When I have more, then I'll feel worthy. When I have more, then I'll feel pretty. When I have more, then I'll feel successful. When I have more, then people will like me. When I have more, then my mother will be proud of me. Yes. When I have more, then my father will be proud of me. When I have more, then my family's name will mean something. When I have more, then I'll break the generational curses. You can break the generational curse right now in your own mind.
Yes. Anytime have is anywhere in your conversation, that's a ding, 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 ding. Exactly. Oh, that's a lack idea.
Exactly.
A lack concept. Having never got you anywhere but to more having, more desire for, more wanting to be more, when you already are the more. Having makes you think that there's something else that you need to acquire, as opposed to realizing that it's already within you.
Right. And so this is a powerful understanding. And so, this is why we talked about in that question, when it came to us understanding and reframing what this chapter is really all about. And it's our prayer that this has really supported you in doing that, right, and reframing that. I think we're going to leave it here, but I want to make sure we do highlight, because he, as he always does, he gives us a wonderful affirmation that we can use for this week. And I'll just go to the slide because I have the slide with the affirmation here. This one. I am God's living enterprise, and
Yes.
God cannot fail.
God cannot fail. It's living enterprise.
Right.
Not it's dead and dying, not it's broken, busted, and disgusted enterprise. It's living enterprise. And it cannot fail.
Cannot.
Nor has it failed, because I am alive and well and have my being in it. It hasn't failed when I woke up this morning, when I go to sleep, when I breathe, and when I think, when I love. It cannot fail because of what it is and my connection to it. It cannot fail.
Cannot.
I'm keeping my hands back here so I don't knock over the mic this week. The new form of mic drop.
It cannot. It will
not. It will not fail.
It won't not.
It won't not.
Yeah. That is powerful. I encourage you all to read and reread this chapter if you haven't, particularly as we've clarified some things and really tapped in to what's going on. But this is some good stuff.
And it keeps getting better every week.
It keeps getting
building
better
on itself. And so if you're aren't on this chapter yet, you got a whole week to catch up in that way. You got a whole week to read or reread and let it sink a little deeper and give yourself examples of why these teachings are true in your life. Right? Ingest it, digest it, live with it.
Yeah. So your assignment for the next 2 weeks is to read chapter 7, which is wonderful, How to Reverse Financial Adversity. Right? So that's going to be a good one. Excuse me. I look forward to that. I look forward to sharing that. And so before we close, we're a little over time, which is fine. But there's one thing I want to share before we get into giving, which has a lot to do with giving. It also has a lot to do with gratitude, as we talked about last week. I was inspired. I saw a design that I thought was inspirational, but I wanted to have a CSC version of it. And a way for us to just visually show our love and support for our essential workers. And so we have a new t-shirt in the CSC store that says thank you. Thank you to our grocery workers. Thank you to our firefighters, to our delivery drivers. Thank you to our sanitation workers and anyone who is doing any sort of cleaning or maintenance in that way. Thank you to our nurses. Thank you to our police department. Thank you to our teachers and educators. And thank you to our doctors. And so this shirt is available. We have a few different designs and colors that you can drop into. Let me not move that because that's I want to mess y'all up. But yeah, different colors. There's unisex styles. There's women's styles. We have onesies, different things. But this is a way, I'm looking forward. You will see me with my shirt on, soon. When it arrives, because we just want to visually. I just think it feels good to kind of have that as you're walking around the city to say thank you. To those that are working, yes, to restaurant workers and those that are in the food service industry. I think that first icon, it covers food and grocery and so many different things. We are so incredibly grateful.
Right.
So find the vibe that works for you and rock it proud, knowing that we live in gratitude at CSC.
Right. And those individuals are repping what we just talked about. They're making love visible in the way that this world needs right now. There might not even be the job that's their ultimate job or career choice. But when they show up every day, love is showing up every day, packing your groceries, cooking your food, taking your temperature, educating our young. Love is showing up every day to do that. And we are so grateful for it. It gives me cold chills to think about. Each time you come in contact with one of these people, remind yourself that love is right now being expressed and made visible in what they are doing. And what I'm seeing as a result now in what they're doing. I appreciate it so much more. I'm grateful in it, this experience much more.
Yes. So go to our website, celebration.sc.org. And scroll down to the shop. That's S as in spiritual, C as in center.org. and order the shirt. And again, we look forward to just being able to share in this gratitude. I saw a comment, but it looks like it was answered. Someone wanted to know what the next chapter was. Chapter 7.
Chapter 7, yes.
Is the next chapter. So with that, it is time for giving. And we have talked so much about it in the context of work, but it is the same in the context of our finances. What do we say here at CSC? Find your joy number, whatever that is. We recognize, of course, that many people are in different financial situations than you were just a few months ago, and that's okay. Find your joy number in that context, right? Because we recognize that as we give, we receive. We must keep an open hand, right? Closed hands receive nothing. And so when we give, our hand is open so that we can also receive, right? But please do not give a sacrificial number. No. Do not give an amount that hurts or doesn't feel good, or you're trying to figure out, oh, I can make it to the end of the week.
Right. You ain't earning your wings by giving what you cannot give.
No, right? So make your love visible through your giving. So the information is here. You can go to our website. If you'd like to text to give, it's 347-744-9500. There is a minimum of $10 to text to give because of the fees that are involved. You can give any amount you want by just going to the website and doing the direct ordering, the direct donation there at the giving page. I think that's about it. So when we give from this place of joy, when we give from this place of knowing, what do we affirm and what do we know to be true? Right? All the money that I use.
All the money that I use.
Returns to me multiplied.
Returns to me multiplied.
In a never-ending cycle.
In a never-ending cycle.
Of increase.
Of increase.
And enjoyment.
And enjoyment.
And so with that, we are grateful to each and every one of you. We honor you. We bless you. We love you. We have the God Talk, which will be starting at 1 o'clock. Just so everybody sees it and has it, I want to make sure anybody, if you're not on the mailing list and you want to be in the God Talk, you need to get the Zoom link and password. And the way to do that, if you're not already on the mailing list, is to text welcome to this phone number that you see on the screen. Once you enter your information, you will receive a reply back, an automatic message with the information for the Zoom link and the password. So we look forward to seeing many of you in just a little bit on Zoom for the God Talk. Always an awesome time, never long enough, but always powerful, inspiring, and life-changing. So we look forward to seeing you there.
And
all right?
If we don't see you there, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Love you.